Welcome back to Grifter Gifted, the show that really tries to look closely at some of the most fascinating people out there, those who straddle the line between charisma and controversy, I guess you could say.
Right.
This time, we're diving into a story that almost seems like it's straight out of a spy movie.
Oh, yeah.
The story of Anna Chapman. You guys sent in a ton of information about her news articles, background details, even some discussions from online forums.
Yeah.
Honestly, the more I dug in, the more questions I had. Is she a master manipulator, someone who's built this persona for personal gain? Or was she, caught up in something much bigger like international intrigue?
It's really a puzzle, isn't it? Her life is just full of these contradictions.
Yeah.
A glamorous socialite, but also accused of being a Russian spy. A single mother, but also an Instagram influencer.
Right. It's almost impossible to figure out what's real and what's, carefully crafted.
Exactly.
And that's what we're going to try to unpack in this deep dive.
Okay.
So let's start at the beginning. Anna Vasilyevna Kushchenko, born in Ukraine in 1982. Even her father's past is kind of a mystery.
Oh.
Some sources say he was a high-ranking KGB official, stationed as an ambassador to Kenya, and later worked in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. But others just say he had some senior role in that ministry, no mention of the KGB.
It's interesting how that ambiguity in her family history, right from the beginning, it's almost like her story starts with a question mark, this sort of blurring between truth and carefully crafted narratives, which seems to define her life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so fast forward to 2001.
Right.
Anna meets Alex Chapman at a rave in London.
Wow.
They get married in Moscow pretty quickly after that.
Yeah.
And she becomes a British citizen. She works at NetJets, then Barclays, seemingly normal jobs for someone, making a life in London. But then in 2006, they divorce. And years later, her ex-husband claims that she admitted her New York real estate company was actually in debt, even though her LinkedIn profile painted this super successful picture.
What's fascinating is that even in this period of her life that seems pretty ordinary, there are these hints of things not quite adding up. It makes you wonder if there was always this strategy, a calculated approach to how she presented herself to the world, no matter what the reality was.
It's like she's always one step ahead,
Yeah.
crafting the narrative before anyone else can.
Yep.
Okay, let's jump across the pond to New York City, 2009.
Okay.
Anna's living just a block from Wall Street, embracing that whole financial district life. But under the surface, there's something else going on.
This is where things get interesting. This is where we step into the world of espionage, where things aren't always what they seem. According to what we've gathered, Anna was part of the Illegals program, a Russian spy ring working right here in the U.S.
Wow.
This wasn't, your typical James Bond stuff. These were agents embedded deep in American society, living seemingly ordinary lives, but secretly gathering intel.
It's crazy to think that someone could be living this double life right in front of everyone. What's even more interesting is that Anna was one of only two in this whole group who didn't even use a fake name.
That's a detail that really jumps out. It raises so many questions. Was she just that skilled? So confident in maintaining her cover? Or was she being used differently, maybe as a distraction, a way to test the waters?
It's like a chess game where each move is calculated, but we don't know who's playing who. So walk us through this. How did her alleged involvement in this spy ring come to light?
Well, according to multiple sources, she was using a specially configured laptop to talk to a Russian handler. She also had these regular Wednesday meetings, although the details of those are still murky. Then, and this feels like something out of a movie, an undercover FBI agent pretending to be from the Russian consulate approaches her.
Wow.
He asked her to deliver a fake passport. Sounds simple, but this seemingly small task sets off a chain of events with huge consequences.
Okay, now we're getting to the good stuff. What happened next? Did she suspect anything?
This is where things get really interesting. She makes a bunch of calls back to Russia, seemingly looking for guidance, maybe even from her father. Accounts differ on what was said, but the end result. She decides to hand the passport over to the police, and that seems to be the trigger, the moment her carefully built world starts to crumble.
So is that a move she planned?
Right.
Or a mistake that blew the whole operation wide open? We'll have to dig into that a bit more, but trust me, the story only gets wilder from here. Stick with us as we explore the fallout from this arrest, her sudden rise to fame back in Russia, and whether her charm is, a weapon or a shield.
I mean, Anna Chapman's arrest, it really shook things up, in the intelligence community, the media. It was a huge deal. Here you had this glamorous woman, like something out of a spy novel, accused of infiltrating American society. It was a story with everything: international intrigue, echoes of the Cold War, and just tons of mystery.
Yeah, and we can't forget about that prisoner swap that happened afterward. In July 2010, not long after she's arrested, she's sent back to Russia. They traded her for 4 people accused of spying for the West.
Oh, wow.
It was this high-stakes diplomatic thing played out for the whole world to see. It just solidified her image as, a major player in this whole world of espionage.
What's really interesting is how differently she was received back in Russia compared to how the Western media portrayed her.
Right.
Instead of being seen as some kind of villain or failure, she's welcomed back as a hero, a symbol of Russia standing up to the West.
It's like being captured and deported actually boosted her status.
Yeah.
She became this national icon.
Totally.
She got a medal from then-President Dmitry Medvedev, joined the Public Council of Young Guard of United Russia, this organization, tasked with educating young people along pro-Kremlin lines. And she even became the host of a TV show called Secrets of the World.
Right, and let's not forget about her venture into modeling and fashion. She was on the cover of Maxim magazine, the Russian edition, walked in Moscow Fashion Week, even rumors of her own clothing line.
It's like she went straight from the shadows of espionage to the spotlight, no problem.
Yeah.
It makes you think if this was all part of some bigger plan,
Right.
a strategy to build this persona that would help her no matter what.
Yeah, that's tough to say for sure. But what is clear is that she was really good at taking advantage of the opportunities that came her way. She used her newfound fame to build a career across media, politics, even business.
And there's also that controversy about her supposedly targeting a senior member of Obama's cabinet in a honey trap.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Some sources say she was trying to seduce this person to get information, but later reports suggested that maybe the FBI's initial worries were overblown.
It just adds another layer of intrigue to an already intriguing story, doesn't it? It speaks to the power of how we see things, how easily narratives can be shaped and manipulated, especially when you're dealing with someone like Anna Chapman, who's so good at self-promotion.
So we've talked about her rise to fame in Russia. But there were some bumps in the road, too, right? Like in 2011, she was accused of plagiarizing material for an article in Komsomolskaya Pravda, a major Russian newspaper.
Right.
It's like she was always pushing the limits, seeing what she could get away with.
That incident, it's kind of revealing. It points to a pattern of behavior we've seen throughout her life. This willingness to bend the rules, blur the lines between truth and fiction.
Yeah.
Whether it's presenting this idealized version of herself on LinkedIn, allegedly being involved in espionage, or taking passages from other writers' work, there seems to be this disregard for the usual norms.
And then there's her personal life, which is just as mysterious as her professional life.
Yeah.
She had a son in 2015, but nobody knows who the father is.
Right.
And then, to make things even more complicated, she's been in a relationship with an American guy, Brooklyn De Niro, since 2021.
Yeah, her personal life is a closely guarded secret, it seems, a part of her world where she only shows what she wants to show. It adds to the mystery, making it harder to see the real person behind this carefully constructed image.
It's like she's always playing with how we see her, giving us these glimpses into her life, but keeping us at a distance.
Right.
So as we move toward the final part of this deep dive, I'm curious, do you think she was this highly trained spy who really did infiltrate American society? Or was she playing a role, maybe failing in her mission and becoming a pawn in some bigger game?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's the one we'll explore more after the break. Stick with us, because we're going to go through the evidence, analyze what she did, and try to understand the woman behind the facade.
Okay, we're back. And, after going down all these rabbit holes with Anna Chapman's story, I'm like half expecting to find a secret agent hiding somewhere.
It's a story that keeps you guessing, isn't it? Just when you think you figured her out, another layer pops up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's try to untangle this a bit. We know she was connected to powerful people in both London and New York. But what did she actually accomplish?
That's where it gets tricky, trying to separate what people think happened from what really did. Despite all the attention her case got, she was never accused of stealing classified information or doing anything like traditional spying.
So was she more of a distraction then? Like a smokescreen for other things going on behind the scenes?
It's definitely possible. Her arrest and being sent back to Russia created this huge media circus. It could have easily taken attention away from other things that were happening. And her being so high profile, even after going back to Russia, well, that could have been useful for propaganda and spreading misinformation.
It's like she's playing this super complicated game while everyone else is stuck with something much simpler.
I like that analogy. She's always a few steps ahead, figuring out how people will see her actions and then using that to her advantage. Whether it's building up this glamorous image or making money from her fame or keeping her personal life a secret, she's always the one controlling how the story's told.
And that takes us back to our big question. Is she a grifter or is she gifted? Is she this brilliant manipulator who used her charm and smarts to get ahead? Or is she just really good at tricking people and built her whole career on that?
Honestly, I think it's a mix of both. She's obviously smart and charismatic. She knows how to grab people's attention and make an impression. But she's also shown she's not afraid to bend the rules, you know? She
Mm.
operates in the shadows and puts her own ambitions first.
So she's this complicated person, a mix of good and bad.
Exactly. And that's why her story is so interesting. She reflects our times, this world where image is everything, and it's so hard to tell what's real and what's fake.
Well, I think we've gone through a lot in this deep dive. We talked about Anna Chapman's childhood in Ukraine, her marriage and life in London, her supposed involvement in a Russian spying, that dramatic arrest and deportation, her rise to fame back in Russia, and how she keeps shaping her public image. We looked at the evidence, tried to understand what she did, and make sense of all the contradictions in her life. But in the end, whether she's a grifter or gifted, well, that's still up for debate.
And I think that's what makes her story so captivating. It makes us question what we believe, challenge how we see things, and really think about how complicated people can be.
So what do you think? Is Anna Chapman this master manipulator, a brilliant spy, a media-savvy entrepreneur, or something else entirely? Let us know what you think about this fascinating woman. And as always, keep sending in those suggestions for our next deep dive. Who do you want us to investigate next? Until then, stay curious.